Hi, we're in Denmark today, just outside the city of Aarhus, visiting this truly stunning equestrian facility with Daniel Bachmann Andersen. And yeah, I'm really happy we get to be here. We've been working together for about a year and a half, 2 years or so, and we've tried out a lot of different things together already. Daniel is super curious and we're really flexible with new products. So he's always testing out a lot of things for us, working closely with us. And he's become a key partner in everything we do together. And yeah, thank you so much for letting us be here. And well, we're going to record a little podcast now, just the two of us. Yeah. Daniel, I think, well, obviously everyone knows who you are, and your achievements, I believe, don't even need to be mentioned at all. There's quite a lot of them, actually. But I think we've done that with one or two of our podcast partners as well. I think it's super interesting to hear your background. So are you from a horse family, or how did it all come about for you personally over time? Because you speak perfect German, which, isn't what you'd expect at first. How did that happen?
So first of all, I'm not from a horse family, just a totally regular, completely normal family background. I come from a completely normal family with a mom, dad, 2 siblings, and I developed a strong passion for horses and animals in general. At a very young age, eventually I found myself joining the riding school located in a small nearby village where it all began. I began taking riding lessons once a week, starting out with a little pony when I was 7 years old. And that's really how it all began. And until I turned 10, I rode there pretty regularly every now and then, And at some point, my parents realized this isn't going to stop. This is going to go far. It's not just a phase or some temporary thing like that at all, really. My parents borrowed a pony from one of my mom's colleagues. That pony, I actually managed to take it quite far, all things considered. It was just a normal pony, nothing special, but with good training and just a lot of hard work, always trying out new things. And in the end, I actually managed to make it work pretty well. In the meantime, I met Morten Thompson, who at the time had his farm in the same village where I was living and training my pony.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah.
And I was 10 years old. That's when I started coming to him. Almost every afternoon, on weekends, and during the holidays, I'd ride my bike over there, spend hours in the stable, help the girls out with their tasks, and just watch everything that was happening around me, what they were doing. He and his wife at the time, Vivi, they had 24 horses there, and they worked with them every single day. Professionally, of course, and I found that extremely interesting, and honestly, that was the only thing I cared about back then. That got me going. Every single day I woke up and could only think about it. I was never into school. Honestly, I just hated it so much. All I ever wanted was to be at the stable, spending all my time with the horses and just being around them. And I already, at 14, 15, I told my mom very clearly, this is what I really want to do with my life. That's the only thing I want. And he said, okay. For a year, he kept trying to tell me, you shouldn't do this. It's too tough. He told me that too, that he tried to talk you out of it. He's getting solid training there and has horses on the side. I told him, no way, that's not going to happen. I want to do this professionally. He says, all right, then you got to go to Germany. I say, okay, but how? Well, I've got some contacts. Then he said, you have to go either to Hubertus Schmidt or Rudolf Zeigner. Then he called Rudolf. First of all, I don't even know if he ever called Hubertus. I never asked him. Maybe he did ask him as well, but he definitely called Rudolf, and that's how I ended up there when I was just 15 years old. During my winter break, I spent 3 days working on a trial basis. On the very last day, he asked me if I wanted to become a trainer, and then after finishing up, regular secondary school, Hauptschule. I moved to Germany at 16, spent 6 years living in Emsbury, and that's pretty much how everything unfolded for me back then. I really loved it, and I took my basic knowledge and everything I could possibly pick up. I soaked it all in and made sure I didn't miss a thing. And every single day, I'm incredibly thankful and grateful for having had that unique opportunity, because it was such a long and rewarding period where you could, let's say, follow several horses from a very young age all the way up to the Grand Prix level, which is truly special. I got to ride, and I was lucky that at that point, I didn't want to compete as much anymore. I got to slowly ease into riding at competitions, and by 2018, I was fully back into it, really enjoying the whole experience, feeling more confident and thriving in the process. I think that year when I turned 19, I rode my first international Grand Prix and actually managed to do really well. So that was already an extremely cool time.
Wow, and after that, you made your way back to Denmark, right?
I actually met my wife during my time in Germany last year. She had come over there for some training. She's originally from Norway. And yeah, we fell for each other and we ended up moving in together in Germany pretty quickly. And she ended up getting pregnant not long after that. You know how it goes with two young people, these things just happen. And we decided then to move back to Denmark for a while, just to give it a shot and see how things would work out for us there. Because it would be easier to be a bit closer to my parents, who were living in Norway at the time, or both parents, in Norge, Denmark. We really needed some support because we were very young. We were absolutely sure, though, that we wanted to go through with it here, and today we're so incredibly grateful that we had all our kids, but also so early with the first two. And yeah, we moved back and stayed with Andreas for 2 years, which were honestly 2 really great, fulfilling, and memorable years together until I eventually received that job offer from Blue Horse. I obviously took the offer and was really happy about it, spending 6 incredible and fulfilling years working at Blue Horse. I had a ton of successes and picked up a massive amount of valuable knowledge along the way.
You also had amazing horses?
Absolutely incredible horses that I was able to keep, continue training, and successfully bring up to the very top level of the sport. And not thinking about selling, never thinking about money, and never worrying about it, just riding and going to shows and really gaining a lot of experience. That was really great. Then came COVID. That was such a tough and really challenging period.
I've already forgot.
Yeah, not me, because for me, it was actually kind of a really crappy situation, if you can put it bluntly, because I didn't quite know what to do or how to handle it back then in that specific moment. You know what I mean? What I should do. I had this feeling it could take a while until we'd be allowed to ride again. And I was just thinking, what am I supposed to do now? Should I just ride around here for a year doing nothing and not be able to go to competitions, not really doing anything? Plus, I had this really strong feeling inside that I wanted to experience something different too. I had that inner instinct, that gut feeling you can't quite put into words, telling me I should go for it and eventually become my own boss. And that ultimately gave me the final push, you know, with Corona happening, because I just thought to myself, it's now or never, no more waiting around for it. And then I sat down with my wife and we talked it over, figuring out what we should do and what the plan would be. We just dove in head first and decided to see where it would take us from there. And we did it. Of course, I had a lot of worries that no customers would come and no horses either, because I had absolutely nothing at all. No stable we could go to, no place at all, and not even a single horse to start with either. I only had one horse, and that was Marshall. I'd already gotten him from Christian. I quit my job. And then it all started, and gradually, actually pretty quickly, a lot of horses came for training, and I slowly built it up. When Marshall was sold, I made a bit of money, and that allowed me to start investing in different horses. This way I could be more involved as a co-owner and have a bit more influence in decisions about various horses. It was a step toward expanding my role and taking on more responsibility in the equestrian world, which felt like a natural progression for me. And today we've got our own place with 21 horses, which is pretty awesome and exciting.
It's really nice here. It's truly really nice here. But it does sound like a consistent story. So when you hear it like that, from the age of 7, I want what I want. Morten also mentioned we're friends, and well, that's one of his anecdotes, how he tells it about little Daniel, who was just like a Jack Russell Terrier hanging on and saying, I want, I want, I want. I can confirm from an outside perspective. Your own perception, your story is also supported by others. Yeah, but I find it interesting. And I think it's something that even in all this hustle and when the successes are there, kind of gets overlooked, how intense this path is and how tough it can be. And afterwards, so many decisions, I think. Don't know how it is for you, but honestly, Yeah, for me, it's been a few self-employed ventures to get to where it is now. It always worked out fine, but looking back with the knowledge of how things turned out, I probably wouldn't have made some of those decisions, or at least done things differently.
Yeah, exactly.
Det menar
Right.
så.
Yeah. Exactly. I would have made so many decisions differently if I were to look back and reflect on everything now, honestly speaking, for sure, definitely. But I don't regret it. I've gained so much experience from it, both the good and the not so great moments.
Yeah, you also don't know how it would have gone otherwise.
But with all the knowledge and experience I've gathered over the years, I could have definitely tried something different to make things a bit simpler and take an easier path along the way, you know? But sometimes you just have to push through it, no matter what. And honestly, I now have amazing support from my family, just not in terms of financial help, but always so much.
Right.
I know they've always been there for me, saying, we'll help as much as we can, but buying horses was never something we could afford, and I've handled everything completely by myself all the way up to this very moment, no exceptions. And I'm really proud of that I've never had any sponsors or anything like that, but instead I've always done everything on my own. And my horses are often for sale or belong to someone else, and that's just how I roll. And honestly, it's totally fine with me and fits my approach perfectly. People often ask me, isn't it hard to let the horses go? And I always respond, yeah, it's really tough. It's not easy at all, but I've gotten used to it. That's just how my life has always been. Because unfortunately, I don't have the financial resources to, just secure a Veyron for myself or a Marshall or the horses, and that's the reality of it. Who did an amazing job for me, and we've shared so many incredible experiences together, and I've achieved great results with them, but keeping them long term, that just wasn't something I could pull off.
Yeah, that's just the reality of the sport. But I believe taking a pragmatic approach is definitely the right way to handle it. You know what I'm saying? It's all about being practical.
And I've clearly proven that it's achievable and can definitely be done successfully. Obviously, with a ton of effort, extremely hard work, a bit of talent, and just that inner instinct that feel you can't explain.
That helps too. And actually, it's something like that. What makes our collaboration so much fun for me is that you're just incredibly curious, and sometimes you can be almost uncomfortably straightforward and honest. So if it's not good, we don't even waste time discussing it. Then it's simply not good enough. On the other hand, you always leave the door open for me to show you things as well. So now just ride and don't tell me anything. Simply go for it. I truly believe it's a win-win situation for both of us. I'm really happy with the feedback we're getting on the new technologies. It's already going pretty smoothly and working out well.
Absolutely. But I've always said I feel an immense amount of things when I'm riding. And I've always said Carsten is awesome, but it just doesn't work for me. It just didn't feel right. And then suddenly you came around the corner with that panel and said, try this. And I immediately sensed that's it. Because for me, too much was happening underneath me with the open system in between. And with air and everything, it was really great for the horses. But suddenly I felt like I just couldn't ride anymore. And then I said, this really isn't working out at all. And then you came around the corner with that panel, the stabilizing pad, and we tried it. And I said, that's the solution.
Yeah, and the combo is really cool now. You get the best of new tech, but you still stick with what you actually need for riding. And what's always been good, which keeps it all balanced and effective. That brings me to another point I really wanted to ask you, because at the end of the day, you're Danish, and that's an interesting angle to consider. And how many people actually live in Denmark? Is it roughly around 6 million, 5 million, or how many? 6.5. Yeah, okay. That's like in our federal state. In Germany, we've got 84 million now, and many other countries too. Denmark is extremely successful. Jumping was more of a thing than it is now, but I've heard there's also a second wave coming. Dressage is insanely successful. I think Danish riders and citizens are genuinely proud of all the incredible achievements happening there. The rest of the world is wondering, is there some kind of Denmark code? Like, is there something specific they're doing differently than everyone else? Is the support system different here? Are young talents discovered in a unique way? Is there something in Denmark that you'd say is exclusive to this country? So that's interesting to me. I also hear people wondering, how can such a small country manage it? Then they really rock across the board. You don't just have one or two top people like we used to see in Holland back then, but there are actually quite a few talented individuals.
So we've got this really awesome system called Echo Cop, and it all kicks off right from the very beginning with the ponies. And that is sponsored by Honey, Echo's owner, and she's been doing it for many years. And that has really pushed us forward in the sport to the point where it's one of the biggest things to ride in Denmark. So every kid who rides and rides a bit more, they watch my daughter now, and they're already saying, Echo Cop, I want to ride that someday. And that's something really great because it also encourages and supports our young people to ride this horse, and they gain valuable hands-on experience. That's pony, junior, young riders, U25 can absolutely take part. And of course, they get the opportunity to ride her every single year. Those are the qualifiers, and then there's always a major final event every single year at the end. And it creates this kind of unity where they, compete against each other, but it's still also filled with a lot of friendship and mutual respect. There's a ton of young people there, and I'm seeing it now with my daughter. We just started with ponies, and it's incredible how much of a bond it creates. And I don't see that in any other country. I see a lot of competitors, like a ton on every level. The young people here in Denmark, they're friends, but we're all pushing each other to improve, grow, and aim even higher. They're all friends. They support each other so much, and I know it comes from within when I'm part of the team, where we know and like each other, support each other, and truly want the best for all of us as individuals and as a group moving forward together. Wish each other well, and we perform way better than if we're constantly at odds. That's just how it works.
Okay, so there is the Denmark code. That is really good that everyone supports each other. But if anyone has ambitions to reach that level of success, pay close attention and listen carefully. I really notice it. And just like you mentioned, it's also a super positive and uplifting kind of atmosphere. And on the other hand, there are, just like everywhere else in the world, the downsides. We're all aware of that. There's plenty of things to consider, and so many people have already talked about it, and we all are, of course. I think we're all aware that things are happening in sports, maybe even things that need to happen. On the other hand, it's also kind of like the riding styles and the philosophies. Well, for me, there's good riding and there's definitely bad riding, plain and simple as that. It's all about the approach and mindset. So, period. And whether someone's sitting in a Western saddle, a jumping saddle, or a dressage saddle, whether there's a bit or a hackamore, personally, I don't really care. I define it as good or bad riding. There's a lot of bad riding out there and not much good riding. I think it's always been that way because riding isn't easy. I know from my own experience, and when you see the people who ride at the top level and get to work with them, it's really something special. So now, since you clearly are one of them, it's like when you experience the everyday stuff, what you deal with every day, and then you see someone like that, it's like, yeah, God kind of spread it around a bit. But still, there's a system for training horses, and it's everywhere, constantly being talked about and debated by people. Now, the expectation is that horses should start presenting their bodies right from the warm-up phase, already moving in a way that mirrors their full Grand Prix test performance, even from the very beginning. I mean, then the nose can't be here, can't be there, can't be anywhere. So extreme, obviously, that's not good either when the horses tuck their head between their legs, but that a horse can't stretch or extend anymore at all. Every athlete stretches and warms up before exercising. But in riding, they're all supposed to move in this 1920s standard position. It's hard to take because there's little actual discussion about the subject. It's mostly just polemic. I think you guys in Denmark had it pretty bad too. Are you in Denmark at a point where people are actually discussing the issue? So is there progress being made? I know from you, you've also been involved in events there. Did you organize it yourself, or does something come from the federation? Is there an effort being made to do something for the horse, for riding, for the cultural heritage of horsemanship?
Yeah. First, I've organized several things myself, where I basically drove all across Denmark and did these 3-hour mini clinics and master classes, where I just focused on good, solid training and shared insights on thinking for the horse, not just about it, real, normal riding. I've taught normal horses at riding facilities and schools, everything. I really gave lessons on normal, everyday horses. Just to see. A bit more here, a bit less there, a bit more over here, sometimes a bit down, sometimes over the back, like you're sitting crooked now, just normal stuff to try and spread proper riding as I understand it. Then we also changed the guidelines a bit with the federation, tweaking them to make sure they better reflect what I believe is the right way to ride and care for horses. It's all about keeping it simple and effective. And most importantly, there'll now be an extra point in the scoring called harmony, which will be a key focus moving forward.
Oh, nice.
So since I brought it up, they asked me, what's your take on all of this stuff here, really? What do you think we can change? One of the points I brought up was, I don't think that's fair. If a horse, just as an example, steps into the arena and completely freezes up in there, looks around a bit, or maybe jumps to the side, rider pats the horse, steps back a bit, gets the horse relaxed, takes, for example, a volte, and now the task doesn't matter at all anymore, but wants to do good for the horse now, rides well. The rider, of course, ends up with a bad result because the focus was entirely on the horse's well-being, not the task. But now the judges have the opportunity to recognize and commend the rider when they've done everything correctly and handled the horse properly. And that's, I believe, coefficient 5.
That's smart.
So that was my suggestion. They've actually gone ahead and introduced that now. But also the opposite, when the rider steps in and says, all right, let's do this. All chaotic and really spurring on, holding tight, going all in and really gripping. And the horse runs through the task without any mistakes, completely clean. But with way too much energy and enthusiasm, just completely in the wrong direction. The horse goes in the wrong direction. Then they get the opportunity to really penalize the rider even more severely.
That's pretty advanced. So maybe more people should take the time to listen to these Danish ideas and consider them. We've had this big issue in Germany, sparking huge debates, mainly due to our heavy focus on the lessons. And then there's like this footnote about relaxed through the body and stuff. It's mentioned, but the main focus is really on the correct execution of the lessons. And then there are like the footnotes, rider aids, looseness, but like that's more of a secondary note in the evaluation. And there's been this discussion for a long time about whether it should be, ranked higher, market more prominently. It's still subjective anyway, but whether it should be weighted higher or not. That's actually a pretty interesting idea. That's definitely a good point.
Several things they've done, I'm not entirely familiar with them yet, but I know this because I was a bit involved myself and could bring it to the table from the riders. Perspective, which really helped shape the discussion and added valuable insight to the overall process.
Great idea. Honestly, I haven't heard of it yet. That's why I'm asking, because every time we meet, whether it's in different countries, federations, or whatever the situation may be, a lot of people just play dead and hope it all blows over. Somehow, and there are also these groups, as you hear, among the officials who are mainly focused on handling these issues, organizing who gets which tips. So, where you kind of miss the passion in the whole thing, but that's definitely a funny idea. But it's interesting. I mean, I think we got to do something, but still, this leads me to a kind of spicy question, because that's something I've discussed with several riders, and sometimes even on camera, and it's always sparked some pretty intense debates, mostly behind the camera, but you're the kind of guy I think you can actually have that conversation with. There's definitely pressure there, and anyone heading to a competition today is putting themselves out there in front of all eyes, and they're also facing the phones at the warm-up area trying to do something good for the sport. That's one part. But then there's also using a bad image of someone else to make yourself look good on social media. And unfortunately, there are all kinds of people out there. Right now, it's like this. You're a really well-known rider, super popular here in Denmark, but everyone in Germany knows you too, and you're just a top rider in the sport. When you get horses, and even if they're super talented, and you say, wow, this horse just flows through its whole body, do you now find yourself looking at the horses with that constant extra pressure from social media always weighing heavily on your thoughts and decisions? A motto like, can I really take this horse to a competition? Or will they just completely tear me apart because he has a slightly shorter neck, maybe a bit of a drop back, or simply because it's a Spanish breed and not what they usually expect, which just doesn't fit into the standard KWPN, German horse, Danish horse mold. So you have to make compromises based on your desire as a rider to want to ride such a horse. Under that aspect, what will the audience think of me if I dare to take it to a tournament, especially since it has a bit of a shorter neck? Just keep it chill and don't stress too much.
So I'm generally not driven by social media. Not at all. Because I have my own way of thinking. I guide myself. I take a good look at the horse. Is it a horse I genuinely like and feel a connection with in terms of its nature and overall personality? That's what matters most to me in the end. How it moves in terms of its personality, its quality, when I get on it and then actually like it too. Then I really don't care at all what social media or anyone else would say about it. It's just my own judgment that matters. Within my abilities and everything I've learned, I try to ride it as correctly as possible, so it moves in the most proper way, given how it's built right now. That's just my approach, focusing on what feels right for the horse in that moment and staying true to my instincts.
Nice statement. Do you think most of your colleagues share the same perspective? I hope so. Great answer. All right, cool. I like that about you. You don't need to say things, and yet you just say them anyway without hesitation. Let's talk about riding for a bit. So we've both tried out a lot of stuff with saddles and also spent some time checking out the horses and their builds. And you're someone who really gets it, who's always super focused on the hooves as well. And I think we gather experiences from all over and share them regularly. You've shared so much with me, and I've also been able to offer some useful advice, which has really helped us both grow and improve. But when you look at the horses of today, I think we can agree that we really like these new horses. I call them the new horses. They're nothing like the ones from 20, 30, 40 years ago. And you still know, even though you're still pretty young, but you're also familiar with the others as well. Would you say they're really that different compared to back then? If you think about it, like the scale of training, what are they already capable of achieving at such a significantly earlier age? So, do you use different tools in terms of various saddles and things like that more? Are they different? Is that also your personal take on it?
Yeah, I think the horses today are way more talented. They naturally move more elegantly and with a much more extravagant and fluid style than before. Then comes the rider with a responsibility. They're also shorter. A lot of horses today are much shorter. And that, in turn, presents us with quite a real challenge. Where exactly is the rider supposed to sit on the horse now? We've had plenty of discussions about that as well. What do you do here to give the horse the kind of opportunity that they naturally have in the first place? We've done so much good in breeding to the point where the horses can move so incredibly well and freely now. And it's also gotten even shorter, and the hind leg is already there. But when you talk about collection and the horse is supposed to sit back even more and bring the hind legs even further under, where's it all supposed to go? Because there's really not much space, right?
And you as a regular-sized guy, no question, but still a guy, not 1.60 meters tall and weighing 55 kilos. We definitely had to do some tinkering there to make it easier for the horses.
And that really opened up my world. I have to say, since I've been working with you, because I realized how much can happen when you ride with an open system and actually work with it a bit, and you start to notice all the possibilities that come with it. It's like everything just clicks into place and you see things from a completely new angle, which is truly eye-opening and changes your whole perspective on riding. How the horses suddenly develop and change is really like crafting something. Tools, we've got various models, and I'm thinking this just isn't working for the horse right at this moment. In the long run, a system can work really well for the horse, but at the moment it's just not quite clicking yet. I mean, it's like, okay, then I've got another method that I can try out for a bit, and I can always come back to it and give it another go later if needed. And I think that's really awesome. And also, the teamwork we have where I can say, what do you think here? This is happening, that's happening. The saddle's slipping a bit that way. Okay, we can give it a try. Let's test that, ride together, talk about it, give it a month or two, and then you come back, and suddenly the horse has, wow, just like that. That's honestly so incredibly meaningful to me.
But it's also new, right? I think maybe it would have been smarter to experiment a bit more earlier on, honestly speaking, just my 2 cents. But the necessity for me feels like, well, the effects you can trigger are maybe just way more intense and significantly more impactful. Maybe that's it. We also had 3 examples. We were like, wow, that really stood out and impressed us.
Yes, and also just to make it easier for the horses to really improve the entire process overall, because in the end, we all want the same thing. We want to have happy, well-trained, strong horses that can carry us as riders and also take joy in working and performing for us, building that perfect partnership and connection together. That's what we're aiming for, and you can only make it happen if you, let's say, have the right saddles, tools, and all the essentials. It's really a full-on journey from the farrier and the vet to the therapists and all the other essential people who are crucial in the process. Is it all about ensuring the horses receive the best care?
Yeah, the management.
The management all around it, like timing and how you ride, it all ties together. So much comes into play, and every little detail matters a lot.
In the end, when someone like Daniel Bachmann explains to a federation that there's still a factor 5 score for harmony, you have to adapt. Does it catch up with you like a boomerang?
Ja, na sicher. Das ist eine extrem große Verantwortung, die ich
a very good job. Very nice, very nice. That's actually a great line to wrap up this conversation. Last question on this one more thing. So I think we're both pretty positive guys, you know? Where do you see equestrian sports in 10 years?
I see equestrian sports there. I see it positively because I view it as we got a wake-up call, which was genuinely what we all needed. I see it. Awesome, because we're going to see even cooler. Horses better trained and more prepared with more time given to develop properly, because there's now a stronger focus on ensuring young horses get the time they truly need. So we don't...
That's good. It has to happen now.
That's just how I see it. We're seeing more mature horses now, and they're definitely better prepared for the task ahead. And then hopefully we'll get even more incredible moments with talented trainers and outstanding horses, the kind that really give you goosebumps.
Yeah, awesome. That's so well said. And to all the federations across the globe, sending big greetings. Maybe take a look at Denmark. Not bad at all. What's been laid out on the table here in just a few short minutes. So I haven't heard a lot of that before. Thanks, dear Daniel, for the great conversation, and yeah, really appreciate it. If you guys out there have suggestions, wishes, or ideas about what we should maybe ask or discuss in our podcasts, because as you can see, we're always open to new topics and really love hearing from you, just let us know. I've got the great privilege of chatting with some truly successful and fascinating people, so don't hesitate to drop us a line anytime, and we'll just keep doing what we're doing. Wishing you all an awesome time ahead.